Good morning. Today we are going to add our boss firing events. Last class we simply created the boss and the boss bullet. So let's get started. So the very first thing we are going to do is we are going to add behaviors to both the boss and the boss bullet. So we are going to, for the boss bullet, we're going to add a few different behaviors. Whoops. If you're like me, you might not have a properties bar, so you go to File, Menu, View Bars, Properties bar, because this is going to be where you can add your behaviors. Let me expand this. Here we go. So I've got the boss bullet selected, and I'm going to add some behaviors. Well, it's a bullet, so I'm going to add the bullet behavior. I want it to destroy if it happens to leave the layout, so destroy outside layout. And that's going to be it. So now we're going to add 3 behaviors to the boss. So I'm going to click on the boss. I see he's highlighted. I'm going to come over here to behaviors. We're going to add the turret because we want him to be able to target the player. You're going to do the bound to layout because that means that he will not be able to move left and right outside of the layout. And finally, we are going to do the custom movement because we will program him kind of like we programmed the enemies to go in that snake-like formation. We'll have the boss do something similar. And once you do this for the boss, remember what we have to do for the turret range. Let's set it to 1500. That's just how far, like how many pixels the boss can detect the player from. And we did that math many lessons ago to figure out that 1500 would be an adequate number. Cool. Moving on. All right, so on your own, what we're going to do is set up the boss. So there's actually a lot of steps here. So let's just kind of go slow and you'll see that it is very, you can get in a habit here or like a pattern and then work with the pattern. So use what you've learned to complete all of the tasks before continuing on. So we're going to start off by creating a global variable. So remember, you create your global variables on this screen. I am going to push my properties over just so I can see everything over here. I might even, you could even close that out, but I'm going to leave it for a moment. So I'm going to add a global variable, and this is called boss type. And we're going to set it to 0. So we are going to eventually have 3 different bosses, right? Because we had 3 different frames. You should see I've got, yeah. So 1, 2, 3 different bosses. So we are going to have that variable for boss type. We're going to add an instant variable called type to the boss object. So you are going to make sure that you are clicked on the boss. And right here, we're going to add an instance variable. So that was in my properties bar. Instant variables for the boss. Make sure right here it says boss instance variable. And we are going to call it type. And it will begin at 0. We will create a boss shooting group. So remember, each one of these is called a group. And so we're going to add a new group. So on my mouse, I right click. On your Chromebooks, you'll do the 2-finger middle click. Add a group. Where am I? Boss shooting group. With the description of handles boss turret shooting events. Create the boss on turret shoot event based on the enemy on turret shoot event. Use the boss and the boss bullet objects. So I'm going to come up here and just make sure that my screen ends up looking like theirs. And so the very first thing we're going to do in boss shooting is you're going to add an event. we're going to add it to the boss because what we want to do is we want to go ahead and target the player. So right here under turret, we're going to say on shoot. Take a look there, so you can also put that in the search bar. On shoot. And then what we're going to say is we are going to spawn your bullet. So once we get this turret shooting, you're going to have bullets spawn out of the boss. So I clicked on the boss, and it is called spawn another object. And what are we spawning? Well, we want the boss bullet to get spawned. We'll go ahead, click done. And then one more thing, remember we've got 3 different frames on the boss bullet, so in order to solidify or just have the color be 1, we will go ahead and do boss bullet and stop frame. Cool. So that takes care of this one. Last but not least, what we're going to do is create these sub-events for 3 boss types. Okay? And so essentially these are going to look just like the way that our enemies were firing. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click right here so this whole thing gets illuminated. And I'm going to go ahead and just do add sub-event. And it's going to be boss. And you are going to do compare instance variable, because we're saying that if your type is 0, then we want this to happen. And I'm going to actually go ahead and just follow this pattern and make type 1 and type 2 right now as well. So notice I've got this whole thing illuminated because that's going to add a sub-event to line 30. And so boss, I'm going to compare my instance variable of type to 1, because your boss could be type 0, he could be type 1, or the boss could be type 2. Compare instance variable, and this will be type 2. Okay, cool. So now what we're going to do is we are going to kind of follow, let's see, this was an enemy shooting. We're going to follow exactly what this is. So if you're good at copy pasting, I know that I've struggled with this, so I'm not going to, but this is essentially the same pattern that I'm going to follow here. So my enemy, well, in this case, I'm going to have my boss. So right here, I'm going to add an action to my boss, and it's going to be set rate of fire. So set rate of fire. And I'm going to use this same expression. So I believe I'm looking, and this was 7 plus 2 divided by enemy fire rate. Sweet. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this for 2 more types. And so I just highlighted that. I did Control C to copy. And you know what? I'm going to follow this same pattern. So for my boss, this is just going to make things quicker for me. This is set rate of fire. But we want the second boss to go a little bit faster. I did 3. I think I'm going to do 5 here. And then I'll do 3 for the last one. Whoops. So I'm going to get rid of my properties bar just so you can kind of see what I'm doing over here. Boss. This is set rate of fire. And this one I'm going to do 3. Sweet. All right, so now what I'm going to do is with my boss bullet, I'm going to set the bullet speed. So here we go. Boss bullet, set speed, and this is in the bullet category. And I'll do 250. In theory, these could all be the same, but this is just going to make each boss harder and harder. I also had really bad allergies all night. Okay, so set speed. If I made the first one 250, I'm gonna make the second one 275. Oh wait, no, you want them to be smaller numbers because that would mean that the speed of the object in pixels per second. No, so the higher your numbers go, the more pixels it's going to cover. So I definitely want my last boss to be the toughest, and so the toughest I'm going to have to be 300. Theirs goes 250, 300, 200, but I'm going to make mine increasingly tougher. Oh, and then there's one more, and this is going to be set animation rate to enemy type. And so this is just going to set the color of our boss bullet to be 3 different colors. This is really intricate. Let's see. We're going to do boss bullet, and this is going to be set animation frame, and this is going to be boss dot type, because that's going to pull the instance variable from our boss, and so that's going to say that 0 is actually getting plugged in right here. So set animation frame to 0, then that will be my very first bullet. This next one, I'll do the same thing. Set, oh wait, what was this? Set frame, and then this is going to be boss.type. And so in this case, this instance variable of 1 is getting plugged in right here. So when you have your first type of boss, you're going to have the first bullet color. And when I say first, it's actually second. Our indexes in Construct 3 just start at 0. Similar, if you ever have programmed in JavaScript, you'll see that in lists, our indexes start at 0. Same here. All right, last but not least, bullet, boss bullet, and we're going to do set frame and boss.type, because that is plugging the number 2 in right there. Woo, that was a lot, but not too bad. I think I'm gonna run my game and just see. Oh, all right. I'm seeing some things such as the boss is already there. He's not firing, and he just ran through all of his colors. So maybe not the best indication of how I'm doing, but we're getting there. All right, boss every other wave. To get the boss to show up every other wave, you're going to need to add a wave system group. Oh, you're going to need to add to your wave system group. I'm going to close these just so I have a nice organized sheet. So I'm going to open up my wave system and add a sub event to the start wave function. So this right here is my start wave function. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and I'm going to say add a sub event. I'm going to select the system object and the condition compare two variables. For the first value, enter wave, was that %2, with the comparison set equal to 0. So in computer programming, this % is actually looking for the remainder. And so if we have, and so the way you think about this is if your number of wave divided by 2 is 0, then we're going to run whatever's going on here. AKA, this is just a really fancy way to saying is even. Because think about it, any even number, when you divide it by 2, if your remainder is 0, then it's an even number. If you have a number such as 5 divided by 2 is 2, remainder 1. Yes, we are pulling out 4th grade log division. The remainder operator is very, very useful in computer programming. So just work with me here and know that we are saying that if your instance is even. All right, moving sub events. Watch carefully because this is definitely very intricate. So we're going to drag the new sub event above the repeat new enemies times event. So we're going to take this and we're going to move it right here. Notice I got that long black line. Okay, check. Now, right-click on the Repeat New Enemies Time event and select Add Another Condition. So right here, I'm going to right-click and I'm going to say Add Another Condition. I'm going to select the system object and choose the else condition. It's in miscellaneous. Oh, I guess it's called special conditions, else. Now, what you're going to do, see how it's like inside of this line 27? What we're going to do is we're going to actually move it so it's still inside of that box on 27. Notice it's still inside of this code block, but it comes before the repeat new enemies. Okay. Notice in this one, it's right here. Just what we did. All right, moving on. Actions for the wave modulus 2 equals 0. That's what we call this, is the modulus operator. Now that we have this sub-event placed properly, go ahead and add the following actions to the sub-event. Use what you've learned to complete the following tasks. Create a new boss object at the location. So this is pretty easy. So we're working on this line right here, line 26. We're going to add an action, and it's going to be in the system, it's going to be create object. And we're going to create the boss at 200. That means 200 pixels from the left to the right, comma 150. So 150 pixels down. Next, we're going to set the boss turret target to the player. So it's going to be the boss, and you're going to add object to target. And we are going to target the player. We will set the animation frame to the boss type variable. So the boss, we're going to set frame to the boss type variable, global variable. We're going to set the boss instance variable type to the boss global boss type variable. So on the boss, we're going to go down to the instance variable menu. We're going to set the value of the instance variable of type to the global variable of boss type. Globe boss type. And then we're going to select the enemy's variable to 1. I believe that's in the system, yeah. So set value of enemies to 1. That's saying that when we create this boss object, we are going to target the player. The animation frame is going to be set to the boss type. The type is going to be to the boss type, so that's where the instance variable is going to give us that 0, 1, or 2. And then finally, set enemies to 1, because there's only going to be one enemy on the screen, your boss. Next, destroy boss on start. All right, so we're going to add an action to the onStart of layout event to destroy the initial boss object. That starts the game off the screen and then plays your game. Okay, so remember just this weird thing about construct, all the items start on when you hit play, and so we just need to destroy it from the get-go. So we're going to add an action, and it's going to be the boss, and it's called destroy. That's just because he doesn't need to be there through our very first level because all the enemies are there. This is a great time to save. Go ahead, click save on the top toolbar. I'm going to go ahead and save as just because things are getting really complicated now and I want to make sure I have a work in progress. So Star Defenders, I'm going to just call it 12.9. Or maybe December 9. And that's because that's the version that I'm working on today. Alright, stop animations and collision. Oh, so let's go ahead, play your game, and see what's good. I know this kind of takes a little bit, but one, it's fun, and two, it's going to be really important to see is our game working correctly or not. Check that out. So it took 3 seconds to regenerate that boss, and that's because of that one time that I told the system to wait 3 seconds. Alright, so what I'm actually going to do is I am going to stop this and I'm going to go to File, Save As, and I'm going to call this, just because I really want to make sure that I can save my places, December 9th, I'm going to say through step 6. You don't need to do this, but I just wanted to go ahead, save my work, and I'm actually going to stop this video and pick back up with the rest of the lesson in a part 2.